think I got this to work, y'all. I'm pretty bad with this technology. I'm getting my cell phone now. All right. And now how the fuck do I text them back? So tilted. Okay. Got on. Start playing Draw It. What? I am live? All right, cool. I'm so bad at technology. Jeez. Is it cool? Am I on? Hey, what's up, people? Okay, what's going on here? We'll give it a minute. I think I got it working, Joel. But on my phone, because this, I don't know. I'm so bad at this.
On that little screen here?
Yeah, I don't know. Like, there's people on here now, I see. But, and there's something weird in the middle. Francine's watching. Bring the... Say hi to the people, buddy. Say hi. That's Rocky. Hola, hola. I see Daniela Negreanu. I'm live on camera. Okay. Hey, what's up, Jordan? Okay, we see you. Okay, cool. So, should we wait a little bit, or should we start fire away with a little Q&A stuff? I can read. I can see everything. I got the glasses on. We're good. Man, technology. I'm too old for this, right? I don't even know what I'm doing, but we got it to work. That's good. So. Okay, last comment I saw was from Travis Nesbitt. It says, hey, Daniel, right? Okay. It's weird, man. Weird world we live in. Because when I was young, they didn't have none of this crap. We had AOL Instant Messenger.
We had 2 cups and a string.
That's a good boy. Say hi to everybody. Say hi to the people. They're all going to the Bahamas, play the PCA, and they're going to try to win millions of dollars because there's millions of dollars at stake. And we're going to teach them a little bit about how to play better. Right? That's a good boy. Where's your brother? Where's your brother Apollo? Huh? Where's your brother Apollo? Good boy. Say hi. Hey, Rocky, you take over the lesson, huh? You got this. Just tell him, all in. Don't shoot. All in. Making Rocky do it. All right. So how do we start? When do we start? What's the deal? What do I do now? I'm so confused, bro. And now I'm on my cell phone, so I can't text the people that know. Am I on a delay or something? This is weird. Like I really, it's like talking to on the Instagram lives and stuff like that. It's so weird. I don't know, man. I'm so confused. Help, T-Negs. I'll help you play poker. Help me figure out what I'm supposed to do next. Am I seeing comments? I think so. Move them. Okay. What now? I don't know. How do I have this on, but then text somebody on my phone? Tell us how to win millions? Okay. So I'll just chill and I'll wait for a question. You all can fire one out. You have a question, fire it out. I'll answer it. Sound good? Sound like a deal? Huh? Otherwise, what the hell? Who's that? Oh, gross. Hang on, I see. Yeah, it's Greasy. Greasy's in here.
Oh.
I don't see it, though. I don't know what to do now. Okay. Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. Hello, everybody. Why I don't speak very good. I love this guy. Guillaume Merlin. Solid. That's a good boy. You good boy. Say hi. Say hi to the people. All right. What am I supposed to be doing here? Let me see if I... What am I doing? Okay, hang on. I'm going to try something. Oh, see, the thing is, I'm afraid if I close this window, then it's going to end a thing, and I want to text something because I don't think they're in here. Technology, bro. Okay. All right. Off the record cue. Any good mental self-development books you are on at the moment in relation to poker? That's a good, fair question. All right, books that relate to poker that are not poker. There's a couple, actually. One is called Blink, okay? And what Blink teaches you, essentially, and I remember I told you this a little bit, Jord, it's that, and the book explains why this works. It's essentially when in doubt, trust your first instinct, because your first instinct is going to be based on a subconscious knowledge that is based off of stuff you've seen before. And you can't necessarily consciously figure out why. Like you ever look at somebody and then within like 5 seconds, you don't like them? Like that, there's something behind that. They did a study in the book and they show it, like where these kids in a school class, like 50 of them, they got to watch 3 seconds of a teacher, like 3 to 5 seconds of a teacher clip. Then they got to watch a minute of a clip. And they gauged, okay, how many of you like this teacher? How many of you don't like this teacher? Okay? The 3-second clip and the 1-minute clip were identical as far as whether or not people thought, that they liked them. So the whole point of that in terms of how it relates to poker is, when you are going to be in a tough spot, whatever the first thing that came to your mind, like when you're really in doubt, obviously you go through the logic of the hand and break down, what happened, the betting and all that stuff. But ultimately you come back to like, what was the first thing that popped in my head? And that's not always going to be right, but it's going to be right more often than not. All right. David Corney says, go a bit on like your masterclass. Seen it, but many here have not. So tell us about tells, ranges, and stuff. Well, I don't know. That's kind of a pretty broad question there, David. But in the masterclass, as you mentioned, we do talk a lot about tells and go over some basic ways to look for them. But in terms of like, see, every human is different, right? So like not everyone's going to have the same tells and not everything means the same thing. So the real way in which you can improve your skills in terms of tell reading is to just really pay attention, right? So you want to be able to see every hand, because if you don't watch a hand and that's the hand where this, old dude bluffed and you didn't see it and you don't know what his mannerisms were, you might be missing like a major clue. Like I remember one guy I used to play and he had this little gold coin, like a card protector. And, he would bet and he would always flip it and always flip it and always flip it, just when he's waiting, he would just flip the coin. And then there's a big pot where he went all in. He wasn't flipping his coin. He just stopped flipping the coin, right? Now, later in the tournament, about 5 hours later, I was able to use that to pick off a big bluff. But if I was on my phone and not paying attention, I would have missed that. So there are definitely, like, as a general rule with tells, you basically want to look for patterns based off the person. There are some general rules in terms of people typically try to be like people are more stiff, closed off, and not as open when they're bluffing, right? And when they have it, they're a little more comfortable. So if somebody's sitting in the chair like this, comfortable, this is less likely to be bluffing than this, where they're showing off their titties, and doing this and being all straight and stuff. So every person's different, as I said. It's very difficult to go into right here, but if you have a specific question about a type of tell, I'm down. All right. Willie Elliott, if you have investment preparation, don't be shy. Oh, Guillaume, what's the language you speak? Tu parles français? What? I don't know what that is. Guillaume? That seems French. I think, right? All right, Scott comes in with a question. Lots of winners are going to make day 2 and longer. What advice do you have for how they should spend their week? Balance of enjoying the experience versus best preparation. Okay, so Bahamas is fun, okay? There's a lot of fun stuff to do. So you have to decide for yourself, like, how much of this is a vacation for you or how much of this is like you actually doing everything you possibly can to succeed and to win. And I'm going to tell you, unfortunately, that if your goal is to do everything you can to succeed and win, the fun has to happen after. The good news is we're in Bahamas. I'm there from like the 3rd to the 16th. So you've got the PSPC, which comes off in the beginning. And then after that, you should have plenty of time to see the sights or whatever. But I would caution against spending your day before, like laying by the pool, drinking beers, because that's exhausting, like mentally, physically, and doesn't bode well for your ability to focus the next day. So like I personally kind of have, for the most part, a rule where like I don't drink any alcohol the night before. I try to like not be out socially with people late. I try to kind of keep to myself and order in and room service and stuff like that because, you know, for me, it's work. Now, that might not be the same for you, right? You may actually just be going because you want to just fully enjoy all things, you know, Bahamas. And if that's the case, then you do you, right? I'm just telling you what works for me. And what I've seen typically for the majority of people that are successful, that really do well in tournaments long-term are the ones that, you know, treat it like a job, you know, and you wouldn't show up to your first day at work, right? And be like hungover, I would imagine. And if you do, you should be getting fired. I don't know. All right, let's see what else we got. We got Jord, my man Jord. Yeah. He says, I've been playing more live, building up a stack based on strategy. Hold on, okay. I've been working on, finding it difficult when I'm doing good to continue to stick to that plan. I start playing with shit hands. Any advice to stop me diverting from my strategy? Oh, Jord, sounds like you're getting bored, right? I mean, so, you know, that just sounds like pure boredom. Like, you know, poker's kind of like that, where you go through periods of exhilaration where you're like, oh my God, I'm all in, craziness and all that stuff. But then you have to like deal with the periods where you just spend like an hour and a half and just fold and fold and fold. There's no easy trick, I would say, to like discipline other than practice and putting into play. But like what I try to do is, the advice I would give, I don't know that I do this anymore. I did maybe when I was younger, is just like, you know, focus on every single hand. Like try to make every decision you make the best one available. So if you actually think before you play your cards, you go, is this a very good decision? Is this the best available play for me right now? And it sounds like you already know when you're doing it that you start playing with bad hands, that that's not what you should be doing, right? So, you know, you're the one that needs to be present. There's only so much we can do to like, you know, give you advice along those lines, but like you just need to take every hand as though it's super important, you know, regardless of your chip stack. Like every hand that's dealt is going to be like, imagine it was like, your life depended on you playing this hand perfectly or the best way you can. If you took in that approach, that mental approach, like similar to like a push-ups, right? You know, if someone said to you, you know, you had to do 30 push-ups and you were stuck at, you've never done 30, you've done 29 before, but like your life depended on it. Somehow inside you find that extra motivation and drive. So in this tournament, if you start feeling that way, like you're losing your focus or whatever, to remind yourself that this next hand is like, your life, not that it's true, but you're like, you know, with the mindset that your life depends on it because your tournament life just might. See what we got here. Jackie Hughes. If a good chatty player, such as myself, is trying to talk to me in a pot, what should I do? Well, Jackie, I'm going to be honest, this isn't good for me, but I'm going to tell you, shut up. Don't engage, okay? Unless you're really like comfortable doing that and you have or you've practiced it, you're going to be giving away a lot more than you get, right? So why would you engage? If a person starts saying, you know, asking you a question like, did you have it? Did you not? Just smile. Or like after the hand you smile. But otherwise, one of the ways you can like try to like avoid giving off too many tells is once you've bet your chips, rather than looking all around or doing different things, pick a card on the flop. Say it's the king of diamonds. You just stare at it. Just look at that card. Don't move away from it. Just stay focused on that one card. And, you know, until the player is made his action, and then you can, you know, be a little more comfortable. But as a general rule, you try to be as stoic as possible. And yeah, I mean, I think you should listen to what chatty players are saying and look for patterns because we all have them. So you can take advantage of a chatty player without actually talking. Does that make sense? Like you don't have to engage to get all the reads that you need from that player. All right. Martin Pember, can you give some tips on playing a quite short stack post-flop, please? I am not quite short enough to jam pre-flop, but not many moves left post-flop if I'm called. Let me see here. So, quite short stack post-flop. Not short enough to jam. Well, so that would be, I guess I would have to ask a follow-up, but depends on what you'd think is like not quite short enough to jam pre-flop. So if you have 20 big blinds to start a hand and someone opens, like you can jam that. Most of the time, you don't. You know, as like sort of a beginner strategy, the more GTO approach, you know, the push shove style of poker. If you have there's a lot of hands that you can profitably shove 20 big blinds with. Now, I'm not always going to do that. I'm going to cut corners. So maybe I'll be in some situations that you're describing here, which is maybe starting with 20 and then calling a raise and having like 17 and a half or so for the post flop play. If you do get post-flop, the good news when you're that short is you really can't get outplayed that much, right? Because there's not going to be 3 streets of betting. You're either going to get it in on the flop or you're not. And typically, you know, if you flopped a piece, like a decent piece, and you're that short, you should be going with it. So for example, say someone raises from middle position and you defend the big blind with 10-8, right? And the flop comes 10-7-4 and you check, the player bets. This is just a fine spot to go all in with. I mean, it sounds crazy, like it's too many bets or whatever, but like if the player has an overpair, oh well, you can't, it's gonna be too difficult for you to get away from this hand when you're that short on chips. Like what do? Check call. Now you check call and on the turn comes like a queen and you check and he bets. Like what, you fold now? It's just so much more difficult to play. So one way you can essentially ensure that you don't get outplayed is by being more aggressive with the check raise line type like that. And the good news is, even if they do have aces, you can still catch, right? You can catch one of the 10s. You have 5 outs to catch pure, and then you have a 3-card straight, right? Because it's 10-7 there is what in the example I described. So definitely be thinking more towards shrug, all in when you flop a piece, or even a draw. Like if you flop a draw, so let's say you called with Queen 7 of hearts, okay? And the flop comes 10-6-3 with 2 hearts. Check, player bets. This is a really good spot for you to get, be aggressive because you have outs. Certainly, you can't be drawing dead no matter what the opponent has, right? If he has a higher flush draw, well, that means a queen or a 7 is going to be good. If he has a pair, then your flush outs are good and maybe your queen is out. So with those types of hands as well, you just want to take a much more aggressive line because you have so much less to lose, right? When you have a 200, 300 big blind stack, you need to protect yourself. You can't be just check raising flush draws and hoping, but when you're short, you can push the envelope in spots where at worst you're maybe like 35%-ish to win, and that's not the worst thing in the world when you're short stacked. Travis Nesbitt asks, what's my... James Albert, okay, I'm gonna touch on that because I'm gonna get to both. James Albert says, boredom is actually a form of tilt. Absolutely right. Boredom is another form of tilt. Like we think of tilt as like, you just lost the pot and now you can't help yourself and you start playing badly. But like tilt essentially is anytime your psychological state is off of what you know it should be. So what Jord was describing earlier is like, I play my strategy, it's working well, and then I start playing shit hands, right? You're on tilt. That's like off of the designed idea of what you think is the right play. So you're absolutely right, it is a thing. So Travis Nesbitt, what's your morning routine like? My morning routine, well, it varies, right? When I'm home, it's pretty static. Like 10:30 in the morning, I wake up in the shower. 11 o'clock, I am doing a morning shake. I'm vegan, as many of you might know. So I'll do like a, super power shake. And then I go to the gym at noon, come back, do another shake, have lunch, do the hockey stuff that I do, and watch some hockey and maybe go to the games, which I'm going to be going to tonight. As far as like actually at a tournament, that's going to be a lot different. When I get there, I'm getting there on the 3rd. Okay, I'm getting there pretty late in the evening. On the 4th, I'm going to Solomon's Fresh Market. For those of you that are going there on a tight budget, you may want to take a trip to Solomon's. It's kind of like a Whole Foods in Bahamas. It's similar setup and all those kind of things. And you can get stuff a lot cheaper than you'll find at the Atlantis. And, that'll help you with like your mornings or snacking or anything like that. So I'll typically go there on the day before, like, the big event that I'm playing. And I'll stock up on pretty much all the things I'll need for the week. And I also bring myself like a little lunch sack. Oh, my mom used to do that for me, so I still do it. And I stay at the hotel that has like the kitchen and everything like that. So I'll cook some stuff. Maybe I'll make some quinoa wraps or I'll do whatever. Some stuff that's easy to eat at the table. And the night before, I try to avoid people. I really do. Like I'm an introvert. I don't know if you guys knew that, but I'm like prototypical introvert. It's like to the extreme. It doesn't seem that way because I'm talkative and I'm not awkward socially and I'm not shy, but I charge my batteries alone. And I know that for many years of playing. So the night before an event, I'm in room service mode. I'm not out with dinners with friends. I'm not catching up. I'm just like thinking about what I'm going to be doing tomorrow. I look at the structure. If it's a day 2, for example, I'll look over who's going to be at my table. I'll look at Hendon Mob and see, what kind of history they have and stuff like that. So I try to tune in as best as possible and just, conserve energy for while I'm playing. All right, Christian Martin, loving this. Cool. Willie Elliott says, will the pros try to attack the less experienced players, and can you suggest any strategies to limit what they can do to when they come after you? Okay, so you know what, you guys, that's a great question, Willie. Here's the thing. So often the biggest mistake, amateur players make in these big tournaments is they think that, oh, they know I'm an amateur and they're going to try to bully me and bluff me with big bets. That's pretty close to the opposite of true. Sure, they're going to be aggressive against you pre-flop. They're going to be aggressive against you on the flop with a lot of C-bets. But as a general rule, these top players, they're going to wait for good situations to make big bets. Like they're not going to bluff off their stacks to you. So if you're in a pot where you have like a mediocre hand and you've called a bet on the flop, maybe you've called a bet on the turn, and now, a good player that's like you've seen on TV that knows what he's doing and is good, is making a very big bet at the river. Now, this isn't a rule, but like more often than not, unless you have real good reason to think they're bluffing, you should be folding those hands. Because say, for example, my strategy in these tournaments with like weaker players, I'm not trying to bluff off these players. I'm trying to find holes in their game where they call too often and just have it more often. Now, that's totally different. When I play against super high regulars and like the super high roller bowls, I'm trying all kinds of intricate bluffs because I know that it's necessary. For me to win, I have to play at a very, very high level against very high level opponents. Against weaker players, I figure I can get my chips in good, so why would I take a risk hoping that my opponent is smart enough to know that they should fold? I don't like depending on that. So I take a much more small ball approach, which is, protect myself, throwing lots of jabs pre-flop and on the flop. By that I mean raising pre-flop and c-betting and stuff like that. But if you see, if you watch a hand and you see a good player against kind of an amateur and he's betting big on the turn and then bigger on the river, he's very unlikely. He's going to be bluffing sometimes, but not nearly as much as you think. All right, and that changes, of course, as you get deeper in the tournament. When you're down to 3 tables, I mean, the average table is much tougher, so there's going to be a lot more bluffing. Felix Schneider, what up, Daniel, in chat? Yeah. Good. Why did I do a German accent? I don't know. All right, so Jordan, again, what other prep can we do apart from hand setting? There has to be more stuff the pros are doing before the super high roller board, et cetera, that's more than hand setting. Well, playing, right? So getting experience playing, like whether you're practicing on PokerStars, just playing like, you know what, that's probably the best way. It's just like to really get in tune is to play a lot of like MTTs. If you have Sundays to do that, really good day on PokerStars to do that because there's like a crazy big schedule of events at varying buy-ins that are small, big, whatnot. But outside of that, I think like from a health perspective, this is like when I started playing, most people were overweight, smoking cigarettes, drinking whiskey at the table, right? Today, you look at the modern poker player, the high stakes pro, their body's in shape, they're mentally prepared, they're physically fit, and just getting in that mindset, whether meditation is something that you're into, that's very, very valuable. A lot of like the high limit players, use meditation as a way to stay present and calm, during the tournament. So that's some things you can do apart from studying. But really, you guys have a couple weeks left still. So just getting experience, feeling comfortable, and you can do that online, which is, probably the best way to get like a ton of hands in. And then you take those hands that you played and you study those, right? Whether it's with a group, whether it's on here, we're asking questions in this forum about a specific hand you played or, with friends that you respect. And then you like, so I've always believed this, that making mistakes is not really a mistake unless you learn nothing from it, right? If you learn from that mistake, then, there's value there because the next time you're faced with a similar situation, you can act accordingly. Proper buzzing, by the way. It's getting close now. Oh, all right. Welcome, Nikolai. Welcome, people. Welcome, welcome. Team Germany. Yes, boy. All right. Jan Kott says, I will extend Jackie's question. What if someone is trying to just make a noise and talk to me, making it harder to focus on decision when I have limited amount of time? Are they allowed to do such a thing? They are, Jan. Yeah, they are. I mean, obviously there's like William Kassouf is maybe an extreme example of a guy who probably crosses the line with just being annoying. But you're not going to have to worry about this too much, Ann. Typically at a table like this, people are taking it very, very seriously, and you're not going to hear a lot of table talk, unless I'm at your table. Or William Kassouf. So I wouldn't worry too much about it. It's going to be a shot clock tournament, so you're going to have somewhat limited time. But, if you feel the need when someone's talking to you or whatever, and you feel like there's value in listening to what they have to say outside of what's happened in the hand, then maybe you use a time extension, right? And engage. If it's, I'm saying only in a situation where it's the river and the person bet and you don't know what to do and you're not sure. That might be a spot to do that. But as far as it being allowed, yeah, table talk's allowed. I mean, there are certain things that you can't say in terms of like what you have or whatnot, but that's part of the game, part of poker. And I love that part of poker. And if that part of poker was like gone, I think it would be bad for the game overall. All right. Good evening, Willie. Nice to have you here. Hope you're fine. Good day. Haha. All right. Jackie Hughes asking, pretend it's the bubble or very near it and I have a hand too good to fold and a stack a little too big to open shove, say 25 bigs. Would it be better to just shove it to reduce variance? Or am I thinking backwards and this is more variance? I'm thinking tens or jacks in early position. So it's actually, you're right. You're actually right in saying that it's lower variance. Say, for example, if you just move in with jacks, right, for 25 bigs, and, you know, nobody's going to try to outplay you now, right? They're just going to play hot and cold, which is, do I have a hand good enough to call with or not? So the chances of that happening are very small, right? If you have jacks, the odds of someone having a bigger pair or an ace king that they're going to call you with is remote. So you're usually going to win that pot. And it does lower variance. If the bubble matters to you a great deal, and you are, you know, like your part of your goal is just to, you know, squeak into the money, then 25 big blinds is actually not too much to shove there with jacks or ace king or stuff like that. You might want to, like, so let's say you wanted to open up a little more than that and you want to raise with like ace jack, say, right? Maybe ace jack is something that you would open with for a normal raise and then, fold to a 3-bet or just play cautiously after the flop. But with hands as strong as like tens or jacks or ace king, as you mentioned, you can comfortably like jam those hands. I probably wouldn't, because I don't care so much about like min cashing and I'm looking for value, and I kind of wouldn't mind someone re-raising me there and getting it in with ace king or jacks or things like that. But you're on the right track with your thinking here, Jackie, that it does lower your variance, and it also, from an ICM perspective, which means like, you know, your chances of actually like making the money, it increases your chances. Because if you do just min raise, you know, or make a normal size raise, like the blind often calls, and now you're gonna have to see a flop. So let's say you have the jacks and it comes like queen 9-6 or king queen 5 or ace something, right? Like now you have to make some more intricate decisions, and there's not only more variance in that, there's also more skill and it's more difficulty. The easy play that you avoid all that with is jamming. You go all in, you're like, hey, do what you gotta do, you know? You can't be outplayed anymore. All right, Willie Elliott, with 300 big blinds and 1 hour levels, how will you approach day one when the stacks are so deep? So this is gonna depend on your table draw. So there's a lot of luck in poker outside of just the game, but also who's at your table, right? So if I'm seated at a table where, let's say I'm really unlucky and I've got superstars, you know, Fedor Holtz, David Peters, all these champions at my table, right? Then my goal is to play very conservatively and not just like, because 300 big blinds is a ton. I'm not going to try to get into like a war with them, like a machismo of like seeing who's as big. I don't know, you know what I mean? I don't want to like, get involved too much with good players. But if I'm at a table where I find that it's a little bit weaker, I'm going to probably play a lot more hands, and I'm going to play a lot more speculative hands. Risking, some percentage of my stack playing a little bit sloppy with the goal of like hitting some home runs, right? So maybe it's not ideal when a player raised under the gun to call in middle position with 6-4 of hearts. It's probably not a good idea. But if I'm at a table where there's not a lot of re-raising, and, if I think the player has a hand like aces or kings, which, seems counterintuitive, right? You think you have aces or kings, you would want to fold. But 300 big blinds deep, if I know that they have a hand that strong, I want a hand like 6-4 hearts when we're 300 big blinds deep, because if I hit it, I feel like I can make a big payday, and there's very few boards that run out where I'm going to lose a lot of chips, right? So, there might be some boards where I flop a straight and a flush draw and maybe lose a decent amount, but that's a very, very strong holding. I'm going to be a favorite with that hand, right? But I'm also banking on being in position, and winning some pots that I have the worst hand with. So maybe I don't want to call from middle position as often, but definitely on the button and next to the button, I'm going to play a lot more pots. And because we're 300 big blinds deep, against some more timid players, I'm also going to do a decent amount of 3-betting in position, not out of position as much. You don't want to do that too much. Like if a good player raised middle and you're in the big blind, you shouldn't be re-raising there too often. You should be seeing flops. You don't want to increase pot size out of position. You want to increase pot size in position. And there's very few times where that wouldn't be correct on a day one, 300 big blinds deep. It's so much more difficult to play. Like, imagine this hand. I raise, Fedor calls, and you're in the big blind, and you re-raise with ace king. Okay? Cool. Now we both call. How do you think after this flop things will go for you more often than not? More often than not, you're not going to flop an ace or a king. And sometimes when you do, it's going to come with more trouble. where you're going to get raised on a turn or raised on a flop. You'll be guessing. You'll be the one in jeopardy. You'll be the one at risk, and you don't get the benefit of seeing what we do first because you're out of position. So think about that as, you know, a general practice and a general rule. The deeper you are like that, you do want to do more 3-betting in position, but out of position, you want to keep pots smaller. Mazi Egler. I'm sure I screwed your name up, but, you know, hey, Mazi Egler. That's probably not even a name. Daniel, what is the best we can do before the event starts to calm a little bit down? Sleep. Make sure you get sleep the night before, right? I don't do caffeine because it messes me up, but I think a big mistake people make the night before is maybe, you know, drinking caffeine too late, and then you don't sleep as well, and then you wake up with a little bit jittery. I say make sure you get 8 hours if you can, 7.5 to 8 hours, and then you don't there's not. I wouldn't do too much before the tournament. You know, I usually wake up, have breakfast, and go straight in. There's like not a lot. I mean, they're pretty long days, right? So as much as working out is like a healthy way to live, I find often during a tournament, if you're playing a long day, if you also work out, by the end of that day, you are going to find yourself fatigued and tired. So rest is imperative. Getting food, like planning food, because I don't know, depending on your dietary restrictions or requirements, like rather than wait till you're there to figure out like, oh my God, I'm starving and I don't have anything to eat. You don't want to be thinking about anything else. So I plan ahead. I'm going to have, you know, everything ready and prepared and you know, eat a healthy breakfast before we start. But deep breaths always work too. Honestly, like before you sit down, if you're starting to feel anxious and you're starting to feel a little bit of anxiety in your chest, like 3 really deep breaths with your eyes closed or not, to really help people calm down. That's part of why, you know, a lot of people who smoke, they say it relaxes them. They smoke cigarettes, it relaxes them. Partly that's true because of the nicotine, but the bigger reason is the fact that when you're smoking a cigarette, not that I'm not recommending this, you are inhaling deeply and breathing deeply. So you can do that without actually putting the poison in your mouth. All right, Christian Martin, what type of things do you recommend saying to get information at the table? I like talking, but want to refine table talk before the tournament. Well, this is something, Christian, that's going to come with practice. Typically, when you're table talking, you create an environment that's more relaxed, right? People are more cool, they're chill, they laugh, they giggle, and but the thing is, again, it's a psychological weapon that if you don't feel like you are have it mastered or whatever, especially in a 25K tournament, I would probably suggest being very, very careful with your table talk, right? And not saying too much. As far as specific lines, like you have to think about what you say, how that's going to be perceived by your opponent when you say it. So if you say to your opponent, you know, if you fold, I'll show. If you fold your hand, I'll show you. What are they going to think that means? Like, what would you think that means? Right? Well, it sounds like the person is saying, not just like, if you fold, I'll show. Please fold, and I'll show you that I bluffed you, right? Now, you can play reverses on that and actually say that when you have it or whatever, but typically you want to think about when you are going to say something, what is your opponent going to perceive it to be, and try to outwit them in terms of like not saying, because like I go through phases where I'm like super honest when I'm table talking, and then I throw in some lies, and they're usually very effective because most people think most of my table talk is on the honest tip. But you might even want to think about some things to say even before the tournament starts. But overall, you got to let your cards do the talking in this one, unless that's something that is like a real big skill of yours. James Abbott, do you think some of the intermediate players may actually be at a disadvantage due to the fact the absolute bosses could potentially make a mistake against a complete recreational player and it's complete freeze out? So let me see. Do you think some of the intermediate players may be actually at a disadvantage? Oh, at an advantage. Oh, sorry. May actually be at an advantage due to the fact the absolute boss could potentially make a mistake against you. No. So yeah, you're right on one part about the freeze out thing, that re-entry, which I don't like. I wish all tournaments were freeze outs, but re-entries help good players because, you know, it gives them more opportunities to, when they're plus EV, to, you know, be alive. Having said that, I think like intermediate player is never going to have an advantage over a better player, right? I mean, unless you make a form, they won't have an advantage. It's just by nature. Like, it's not. They couldn't have an advantage, but there's a lot of ways in which you can mediate or lessen the advantage. One of them is with structure, one of them is with playing style and stuff like that. So what I do occasionally, depending on what type of tournament is, say for example, I was playing the super high rollerball recently, and in the cutoff on my first day, when I was in the cutoff, it was Justin Bonomo's big blind, okay? And he's extremely sticky. And by sticky, I mean he just doesn't fold. He just doesn't fold, like hardly any hands for 2.5x. He's always calling. So I was like, okay, there's some value in the big blind ante and shorthanded. There's no any, so I upped my sizing. I actually was making it 4x early because we were playing super deep and putting him in situations that he's not that comfortable with. So that's not a terrible strategy if you're up against a player who you don't want to play flops with, or you don't want him to like get a good price. You give up a little bit by doing this, but overall, if it saves you in your tournament, journey, upping your sizing. So say, for example, at the first level, 1,500, a good player opens for 300. What would you normally size that to on a 3-bet? Normally you size that to 1,000, right? Somewhere in that neighborhood. Well, if you really don't want this guy playing with you long term, with hands like 7-8 suited and stuff like that, you can make it 1,500, right? And what's he going to do? Like if he calls you because he thinks he can outplay you, he's giving up a lot playing inferior hands out of position against you, right? All right, James Abbott. How many time extensions do we get, by the way? Anyone know? I'm not sure. I typically, I don't know. I don't know the answer to that, but we'll you'll get that information, and it's not going to matter too much. You don't need to know that like the day before. As long as you know that day, you'll have a general idea. But I would tell you one other thing too with the time extensions, and this is something I've learned playing a lot of shot clock tournaments, is don't let it stress you out if you run out. Okay? If you get 30 seconds to make every decision throughout the tournament, you'll be fine. So I often hold on to them way too long, where like, oh man, I don't want to waste one here. I'm like, you know what? If I don't know what to do, and we're at the 30-second mark, just use a time bank, right? You don't want to do it on like really small, insignificant pots, of course, but if you're not sure, just use them, because you'll find that like you do get refreshed the next day. You get another set, so you're guaranteed to have time on days 2, 3, and on. But don't overthink it. Just play as you would normally. Obviously, if you're at the 25-second mark and it's a small pot, make sure you act quickly because you don't want to waste one. But when you have a tough decision, just use them. You'll have plenty. All right. Okay, here we go. Scott Goodall. For most Platinum Pass winners, this is going to be a super nervous time. If you had to give a basic strategy to make the min cash, which would change many lives to achieve, what would that be? Well, again, it all sort of coincides with everything we've been talking about, but maybe a little bit more on the conservative side if the min cash is going to be a big deal, especially as you get chips, and pricing people out. So again, somebody earlier, I don't remember who it was, made the, I think it was, who was it? I can't remember her name now. Maxie or something. She said something about lowering, what do you call it? My brain. Lowering variance, right? You making bigger bet sizes actually lowers variance because it forces your opponents to kind of play straight. They have to play like, they can't get away with playing a lot of goofy hands to outplay you. So I would say that even though this is not what I'm going to be doing, and a lot of the top pros are going to be doing, but again, if that's, the mindset's different, right? So if you're specifically talking about players who, want to make life-changing money by just min cashing, that's not going to be how someone like a Fedor Holtz or a David Peters thinks, right? So they're going to be playing a lot of hands. They're going to be making a lot of small bets. They're going to be looking to play interesting hands on the turn in the river or whatnot. If your goal is to min cash, you want to avoid that as much as possible by A, playing more conservatively, playing fewer hands, B, sizing up, making bigger bet sizes, right? And what that does is it helps define your opponent's ranges even more, right? So let's say, for example, a flop comes like 9-8-4, right? And you bet against Fedor, you bet like a quarter pot, and he calls. What's his range? Woo! Super wide. He could have tons of hands. He could have so many different hands that he's trying to outplay you with. He could have nothing. He could have air. He could have sets. He could have 2-pair, overpairs. All kinds of stuff he could have, right? What if you bet, say, pot? You bet the whole pot. Now what does it do to Fedor's range? Well, he's not going to call with this wider range, right? So it allows you to make easier decisions on turn and river. So if you bet big pre-flop and you bet big on flop, now on the turn in the river, you can be a lot more cautious if your opponent's still playing with you because they're not being as speculative against sizing like that. Typically what you see is like the solvers and whatnot. What you see at the high limits is very small C bets and very small raises, right? That's because people are trying to play at a very, very high level with the intention of winning. right? Again, to Scott's question, if your goal is to min cash, there's a shortcut, which is this, which is what I'm talking about. It's larger sizing, pre-flop, on flop, and conservative play on turn and river when called, right? Because when you're making bigger bet sizing and people are still calling, what does that mean about their strength of their hand? It's much better than when you're just betting little itty bitty dinky ones that I'm going to try to like peel off a card and, you know, hit a miracle against you. All right. Okay. Oh, shot clock only kicks in after we're in the money. That's too bad. I like the shot clock. All right. Martin Pember. I usually have opposite problem, that my table is too quiet and I need to get some general chat going so I don't start feeling bored. Oh, interesting, Martin. Well, then you can just be like a good human being and be talkative and talk. And I think ideally you don't want to be rude to people. Like if there's a big pot going on or there's two people involved in a hand, you don't want to talk to them then. That's not the time to do it. Side conversations that are, you know, kept to a minimum and not too loud, those are fine. But generally speaking, you know, in between hands is when you know, you can just chat and ask people, you know, simple questions. Where are you from? What do you do? I mean, I know it sounds crazy like that this needs to be said, but for a lot of people, you know, they don't even know how to strike up a conversation, you know, at a poker table. But really it's, you know, you notice a shirt the guy's wearing, be like, oh, cool, where'd you get that? He's like, oh, I see your hat. You're from Michigan. You a Wolverines fan, you know, or you see the new gambling thing. There's always things you can think of to strike up conversation. And when you do that, it creates just a much more like relaxed environment at the table. And that's actually good for you for the most part. What you don't want to play at for two reasons. One, because it's not as fun. And two, because it's harder, is you don't want to play at a table where everybody's tense and not talking and so serious and waiting like 1 minute to go check, you know. You want it to be a relaxed atmosphere. You want people to be relaxed because then you'll also be able to pick up a lot more tells on them, right? All right, let's go. Alex Irwin. Hello, my big mate. Oh, I got look. Okay, hey Daniel. Oh, Mindaugas Povilaitis. Mindaugas Povilaitis. Where's that from, Mindaugas? I don't know where that name's from. It's a new one for me. Hey Daniel, I can't believe that I'm talking to you. You are number one. I hope I'm going to see you at Bahamas. You'll see me there. I'll be there. Damn, man, you're so good. I agree. Yeah. Sorry you have to go back to work, but definitely going to watch you tomorrow. All right. Okay, look at Daniel trying to make us all just flat ace king in the big blind. No, really, James, I'm telling you, think about it. When you're that deep, 300 big blinds, I mean, do you really feel comfortable about that spot? Like, I don't like it. Now, I'm not saying you should always be flatting. Especially, a lot of it's going to depend on positional raises, too. So, if, like, Fedor raises in the cutoff and, you know, Steven Chidwick calls in the button, right? This might be a spot where, you know, their ranges are a lot wider. So you can go ahead and 3-bet, but you got to 3-bet with size. Like I'm talking 15 bigs, seriously. So if the blinds are 1,500 and you know, first raise is 250, call 250, don't be making it some dinky 900 or 1,000. You're just gonna find yourself in a bad spot. Force them, charge them heavy, 15 plus. I'm talking. You can do as much as 1,800 in that spot, depending how deep you are. I didn't say that you should always be flatting, but the point is that when you do 3-bet, realize like out of position, even with a hand as strong as ace king or aces or kings, like what do you do? So if you listen, I'm not saying, and you should do this, but just the point was to illustrate how tough it is to play out of position. Just say you do 3-bet aces, right? They both call. Comes 9-6-3. You bet the flop and they both call. Oh my God, I'm scared with my aces right now, right? Because what good can happen here? You know, it's not like they're just going to call off 2 more big barrels and you're going to get value. You're going to end up having to check the turn. Now say the turn is a 10. The straights are there, sets are there, 2 pairs are there. There's always danger when you're that deep. And being out of position puts you just in like a really tough spot in terms of, you know, knowledge post-flop. All right, no, pretty soon, can't wait. Time to watch Daniel. You're a superstar. Who's that? Nickel. All right. Hey Daniel, I'm flying home after this tournament via Toronto and decided to spend a few days there. What is somewhere I have to check out in the city? Oh, you got to go to the CN Tower, eh? Oh yeah, if you're in Toronto, you got to check it out. Ori Kasanji, top 3 live read tips. All right, I'm going to give you some. Posture, okay? Let's not tell everybody about this one. This is just for this group, okay? I don't want to give this stuff away because it's really important. Posture. Notice posture. Notice, in general, somebody's baseline posture, right? If someone normally is always sitting like this, chill. That's their baseline posture. Someone's like Stephen Chidwick, like this is his baseline posture, right? So what you want to be looking for is shifts in posture in big pots and what that means, right? So if you see somebody who's like this, comfortable like this all of a sudden, and then, they bet the river and they stiffen up like a board, well, what would that tell you? To me, I'm like, that's interesting. Why are you so scared? Like, why are you trying to like show off that you're so stiff, And typically that's going to be weakness for a lot of players, but it's not always. Another one is as simple as just the straightening of the back, right? I did this in a tournament. I was three-handed, and I won't name the player, but he would, most hands, he sits forward in his chair. You can't really see me, but hang on. So like he sits forward like this, sitting forward, and then, when he bluffed, like this. He's like this all the time, but then when he bluffed, he's like this. So body posture is certainly a good one. Hands, fingers, hands. Look for tensity. Tensity, that's not a word. Look for pressure points. So if someone's holding their arm, hang on, some guys that do this, right? So they're holding their arm like this, Someone's like this, it's pretty relaxed. That's their normal thing, right? Now, notice they made a big bet and they went like this. Their fingers were this. They're grabbing their hand a little bit tighter, right? This is stress. And this is what people do subconsciously when they're stressed. So you want to look for stressful things like that. The other, it's a little more tricky. It's in the face, but I don't know how to give this one away without not giving away way too much, but it's in the mouth. There's a guy I played poker with who was like a troll of mine for a very long time. Well, he's been a troll of mine for a very long time, and I don't like him. And so I made sure before I played with him, I knew I was going to be at his table in a super high roller bowl, that I was going to study him. And he gave away a lot with his mouth. And as simple as whether it's open, like that, or a little tight-lipped. And it definitely was stark. So you want to look for, like I said, posture, you want to look for tensity, and you want to look for like mouth movements, or a lot of people are really into the neck pulse thing, but I find it to be not all that accurate, because the neck pulse, when someone's neck is pulsing a little bit, you see a lot of guys wearing scarves and whatnot, that doesn't always mean what you think it does, because it means they're nervous or whatever, but why are they nervous, right? They could be nervous because they're like, oh my God, I have a big pot, I'm going to double up right now. This is so cool. I have straight flush. Or they could be nervous because they're bluffing. So unless you know for sure, that can have, I don't know, it can lead to some reads out of justification, like that you're hopeful because his neck was pulsing, he was bluffing. It doesn't always mean that. All right, so that was 3 pretty good ones. All right, James Ablott. Yep, I've played many time extensions events before. Tend to have, oh, never mind. That wasn't a question. Yes, Alex Irwin, I agree with you 100%. We did this tournament, the Players' Championship, to, in the mold of what the players wanted. And I disagree with this one, but again, it's all about what the players want. And I definitely think that the shot clock should come in before the bubble. I think it should start from hand 1, frankly. Because like you said, there's going to be a lot of tanking. And as much as I hate to promote tanking, because I really do hate it, if you are near the bubble and this is like life-changing money for you, other people are going to be doing it. Like basically wasting time. So a reasonable amount, let's say, for example, taking 10 seconds before you fold your hand, or 15, even with 7 deuce, is fine. It's not like egregious, right? You don't want to be that guy though, that just like takes, 2 minutes every hand for like 9 deuce offsuit. That's just like, I don't know. It's you want to sleep at night, right? You want to have some sense of like integrity and class about yourself, and not just like, I don't know. You know what I mean? I was going to go somewhere totally different with that, but I'll just leave that. All right. Mazi Egler. All right. Normally, I don't play very often deep stack poker tournaments in Germany, and online I play only turbo and hyper turbo games. What's the best decision? Start early, come after 3-4 levels, or go directly into day 2? My comfort zone is 20 to 30 bigs. Wow, that's a very interesting question, Mom, because you're a very specific type player, right? And sounds like, based on your question, you have a little bit of a fear of playing super deep, like 300 big blinds with no ante. And if that's the case, then maybe the first 2 levels are worth skipping for you. Now, the other option is, showing up and just coming in with the mindset of just saying like, okay, I'm going to play like an absolute tight, nit. Like I'm not going to get involved in anything really, really stupid. And just look for really like some recreational players maybe, or some weaker players just giving you chips, right? Because It's a disadvantage to show up late, for sure, because if you're a winning player, the chances are you're going to have more chips a lot of the time, right? Or you're just going to have more EV. But if you really feel uncomfortable with it, and you know your comfort zone is 20 to 30 bigs, then maybe you should, I mean, I have to look at the structure more closely, but I wouldn't go too far into just like jumping into day 2, unless that's what you want to do. But I would think that, you know, that's going to be pretty short for day 2, having only 20 to 30 bigs. I would say maybe you can skip the first 2 to 4 levels, but I wouldn't skip the whole day. Do you want to swap some action? Christian Martin, sure. I'll take 99.9% of you. No, I'm just kidding. Liam Casey, if your goal is to win it, who do you most fear as a player who is there? So it's going to be a prototype, a certain type of player. And those players are the types of players that usually play in the super high roller balls. The Fedor Holtz, David Peters types, right? They are very aggressive. They're in your face a lot. They put you in uncomfortable situations. They are just, you know, tough to play against overall. So it's much easier to play against people who play a little more ABC, a little more straightforward. And, you know, you play against high rollers like that, they're, you know, little killers. Do you love the shot clock? Do you like the shot clock when Chris Oliver is in the hand with you? Or do you tend to like more than 16 seconds before you make a decision? I'm not sure I understand that one, James. All right, we got Nikhil Segal. Had to shift the laptop, sorry I couldn't type on the phone. Nice. Oh, never mind. Okay, Jay Cott asks, are you trying to find out something about players you're playing with at the table if you don't know them? Yes. Or you just assume they're amateurs? No. And if you do, is it hand and mob, or do you always have some other ways? Hand and mob is one, but I usually don't do that at the table. I'll do that at the end of the day, because they're going to show you your table draw a lot of the time for day 2. So you can go ahead and, you know, check and see who's going to be at your table, and that gives me a little bit of insight. I do that during the World Series of Poker and other big main events where there's going to be new faces. But you don't want to make the assumption that people are amateurs. Now, I've been playing for 20 years or so I have a pretty good grasp or feel for when somebody's like an amateur, and it doesn't take me very long to figure out. But no, I don't think it's smart to just underestimate people, right, before you know what they're capable of. So I find, you know, that first hour at the table is very important for me to sort of get a sense of who I'm up against, what they're capable of, what buy-ins they normally play. And a lot of time I just talk and I ask questions, and people are willing to have conversations. And it's not malicious in the sense that, you know, I'm only trying to exploit you. I talk because I like to talk. I got a big freaking mouth. I also talk because I get to know people, and it does help me at the poker table. It makes me comfortable. It's my comfort zone. Okay. Carol Wojciechowski. Daniel, how are you playing medium or low suited connectors when you're deep in stack? I somewhat touched on this earlier, but again, it depends always on who's at my table. I'm playing those types of hands probably more liberally than most, especially in position, especially against players who I know are not elite, you know, whether they're amateurs or whatnot, because those kind of hands, I find that the risk, you know, your risk is low, and your payoff could be potentially really, really big. If you're up against an opponent that has aces or kings and you know it, and you also know that they get married to them and they won't fold no matter what the board comes, you know, you can play your hands with the intention of just trying to hit them and, you know, getting max value. Or, you know, when the players that play really tight have like, you know, aces, kings, or ace king or something like that, and you know they're, you know, big cards, sometimes you can just represent. So if it comes like 6, 7, 8, and you have 10 jack suited, for example, maybe you call the flop and the turn's a 5. So now it's 5, 6, 7, 8. Well, if you know your opponent doesn't play any hands in that range, but he knows that you do, you can win the spot a lot of the time with your jack high bluff on the turn. They should be folding like aces a lot of the time, right? Tips on late stage play. Mouth getting dry here. Second here. Tips on late stage play. 20 players or less. I've regretted not getting it in with 10s or king queen, only to lose later on after a pay jump or 2. I tend to tighten up and not play my game that got me there. I want the trophy and win too much. So if you want the trophy and win too much, then you shouldn't be tightening up, right? You know, you should be getting in there and dancing. And like, again, once you're in the money, I mean, you shouldn't be too preoccupied with the pay jumps at that point until you make the final table. Because the pay jumps are so minimal, right? If you go from 22nd to 19th. You know, there's maybe a small pay jump. But in the bigger picture, you diverting your strategy, which hurts you from making a final table or winning for that pay jump, isn't worth it, right? When you're in that position, which is, you know, hard to get to, you want to maximize, you know, what you're able to earn for that event, right? So yeah, you just have to change your mindset about that and not be tightening up. Jord, you can figure out who the troller was. It's not that hard. Hi, Daniel. What should the overall strategy be when you're 20 to 45 blinds in small blind against a good player, deep stacked in big blind at the mid-late stages? Great question, Nikolai. Very, very good question, Nikolai. Watch a lot of the high rollers, and what you'll see is they've adopted a strategy that I've been using for ages. I'm talking ages. With a big blind ante, that incentivizes big blind to call really wide, okay? So what you need to develop is a very wide limping range in that big blinds overall, regardless of your stack. Obviously, if you're down to 15 bigs, you know, you can be jamming more often with, you know, hands that dictate that you should. But in the 20 to 40 big blind range, you should be doing a lot more limping because most good players in the big blind are going to call at very least, okay, when you raise in the small blind. And this puts you, as we've talked about, I'm going to hammer it home, puts you in a very precarious spot post-flop. You raise with ace-7, cool. Now he calls. If you don't hit an ace or a 7, how do you think you're going to win this pot? It's going to be tough, right? Let's say it comes, you know, 10-9-5. Well, you bet. Okay, cool. Now he calls. Now what? Now it turns a queen. You just, what do you do, man? It's so hard, right? So you want to keep pots smaller. This is the one thing I want you guys to take away from this, if anything, is when you're out of position, you do better if the pots stay small. When you're in position, you do better if the pots get bigger. So on that note, when you're in the small blind, you should be limping a lot of your range, and super strong too. Like against a good player, when you limp, he's going to raise you a decent amount, right? So let's say you do have 25 bigs, you pick up queens in the small blind. If you just jam, he's not going to call you unless he's got a really, really big hand. So why not limp, right? They're going to raise you a lot with weaker hands. Now you can limp re-raise all in, okay? So you pick up a little bit of extra value, and you maybe even tie your opponent into the hand a little bit where they end up calling you with something like ace-jack, and you get some extra value. All right, let me see. Nikhil Segal. Daniel, I've been thinking about this a lot, and seriously, won't most of the amateurs be super nervous? I know I am. Do you actually recommend scarves and hoodies and dark glasses? I've never been comfortable with that. I don't think you need any of that stuff. I think you got to be comfortable with what you do. And if that's your comfort level, that's what you need to feel comfortable, then fine. As far as them being nervous, I think you'll see that in the first couple levels, okay? So level 1, level 2, you might see some nervousness from amateurs. But as the tournament progresses, people just realize they're just playing poker. It's just a poker tournament, you know? They stop thinking about the money until we get near the money, okay? Now when you get near the money again, near the bubble, that's when, you know, the amateurs are going to start to get really, really nervous, and that's a great opportunity to exploit, to really take advantage of their, you know, the weakness, and maybe they're overfolding their blinds and things like that, and you can open up with some, you know, weaker hands. Like say, for example, I don't open too often on the, I don't, like if everyone folds me on the button, I don't just automatically open, especially against good players. I play, I'd say opening close to about 45% of the hands, which is a lot, but you know, you're the button. Now, if I know that there's 2 weak players in the big blind and the small blind that are like right near the bubble and they're scared, I'm going to move that up to a solid 98%. I'm just going to raise any 2 cards because they're folding too often. Aliyah. Okay. He plans to wear sunglasses. I wish we made those illegal, but it's fine. You get to wear them, Ali. Oh, yeah, James, I know what you're talking about. He called the clock on me in 16 seconds, which made me know he was bluffing. Christian Martin. How old are you, Christian? He says, because I'm probably going to be one of the youngest, if not the youngest player in the field, should I behave any differently to how I normally do in my normal live setting? Example, time for making decisions? Nope. I wouldn't factor in any real way how you being young, because I don't think you're going to be wearing a sign that says, I'm 18, I'm 19 or something, right? So you might look young, and if anything, you know, that could bode well for you if people feel like you might be inexperienced. But that's changed too, because there's so many great young players today that have played so many hands online. So I wouldn't read too much into it either way. You know, I wouldn't even think about it. There's plenty of things to think about. That might not be it. Okay, so Willie Elliott asks, do I have a set C-bet percentage when I have the betting lead, or is it all situational? So when, so the PO solver and like in super high roller bowls, what you see typically is people are right around the quarter pot C-bet size on flops with most situations. Now that's not always true, but it's like pretty much close to the standard in terms of what people C-bet in the super high roller bowls. I won't be doing that nearly as often in a main event like this, the 25K. I'm going to play a lot more exploitatively. My standard line is quarter pot, and I did that in super high roller bowl in May. I think almost every C-bet I made was quarter pot. But I'm making some, because it's always fine. It's never really that bad. It puts people in tough spots because they're getting a really good price, so then they end up peeling really light, which allows you on the turn to just be like, oh, thanks for the extra chips because I'm going to bomb the turn because you can't have anything. So, but overall, I would say that I'm going to size up in spots against weaker players where I feel like that can help me, exploit and win more chips. So, for example, if let's say I'm up against a really ABC player who plays fit or fold flop, right? Well, against them, if I'm bluffing, I can C-bet smaller. And when I have it, I can C-bet bigger. It's really simple, right? It's obviously very readable and very like if you knew I was doing that, you could like totally take advantage of me. But that's only something I would do against very specific opponents who I have a really good read on. You're 6'10"? James Ablett. Well, I guess we won't be missing you, James. 6'10" and 22. I don't think you'll be one of the younger ones, James. I think there's going to be plenty of guys your age. At least there's going to be some 21-year-olds. I think in Bahamas, you can be younger. Oh, my puppies are so damn cute right now. Oh, yeah. Go get them. They're fighting. Okay. Pete Brankin asks, how do you feel about leading on the flop or turn out of position, and what sort of sizing, or do you recommend always checking to the pre-flop aggressor? I don't really like a lot of leading into the aggressor. I don't. It doesn't make a lot of sense. Like in the last super high roller bowl, often I was just checking in the dark because it's fine to be checking your whole range for the most part. There's going to be spots in multi-way pots especially where you want to lead from the blinds and things like that. And as far as sizing goes, out of position, again, I'm going to hammer this home so you guys really get this. One of the other adjustments I make too, in terms of sizing, is when I'm out of position, I'm sticking with quarter pot sizing for the most part, very small betting. And then in position, I might be betting a lot more. Why is that? Because remember what we said before? For our entire range, out of position, we do better in smaller pots. In position, we do better in big pots. So even when I have strong hands, I have to balance my entire range in these spots. My overall C-betting, the percentage of the pot that I'm betting is lower. So I'm usually going to stick with quarter pot for the most part out of position. And then, in position, make some adjustments here and there. And I'm going to probably stick with quarter on the flop, quarter on the turn a lot, which is really weird and goofy, I know, but it's kind of like part of a new age strategy that I studied, and it works really, really effectively against aggressive players. So I'm typically out of position doing like a quarter pot, and then river, I might be betting as much as 2x pot or 3x pot, right? Because let's say, for example, you're up against a specific opponent that when you bet quarter pot, if they have a strong hand, they'll raise you. So you bet and they call. Now the turn comes, you bet quarter pot, and if they have a strong hand, they'll raise you. So now they just call, okay? Now on the river, say a blank comes off, what do we know about their range? It's capped. They don't have the nuts. They don't have strong hands. So what happens if we bet 2x pot, 3x pot, something like that? They can't call. Like they don't, certain players, you just know that they're never going to have a hand strong enough where they can theoretically make the correct call. So that opens you up for just like small jab bluff, and then throw the bomb in and just know that they can't call. Now, obviously, if you do this every time, just like anything, people will start to pick it up. So you're going to have to be somewhat balanced here and have it sometimes and hope that they get a little curious. Get out of this pot, it's mine. Ori Kasanagi, what are other things pros might be doing to exploit newer players? One thing for sure they're going to be doing to you guys is they are going to play really, really loose in position. and they're going to 3-bet you a lot in position. So if you're in those steal spots next to the button in the hijack and whatnot, and you think you're going to be able to open liberally when David Peters is on the button, no, you're not. He's going to punish you. He's going to 3-bet you a lot, going to try to outplay you in pots. He's going to flat. He's going to do all kinds of things. He's going to really take advantage of positional advantage. Just going through, looking for next question. All right, I think I caught up. Sweet, finally. All right, cool. All right, guys, well, seems like we did pretty good, right? Is that an hour? Yeah, I think we did an hour. My voice is cracking a little bit, but I'd like to definitely like have a chance maybe on the day before of, you know, meeting with some of you guys, definitely with you, Jord. We've got to go over some stuff, and we got to like take a look at your table. And, you know, if you have any questions or whatever when I'm out there, feel free to come and ask, and I'll do my best to give you some advice that isn't so difficult to implement in the moment. Because one of the difficult things about doing this is I don't know enough about each one of your games in terms of your flaws and your strengths. You may think that you know what they are, but, you know, I may find a very different answer to that question. So so what I try to do for the most part is give you like more general rules and guidelines and ideas of what you can, you know, do to improve your game, and how to be prepared for these like pros that are going to mess with you. And really what you want to do is you want to play your own game, take it one table at a time. Don't worry about how many players in the tournament. Don't worry about being average stack. You know, just continue to do what you do. If you're under average, don't get scared, don't get nervous, and just have fun. You know, you'll start to have fun after you, you know, you win your first pot. But all right, guys. Yes. Oh, that's cool. January 5th, Melanie Moser says there's a PP winner reception. That's awesome. Okay, I will be at that, and we can all meet there. What sort of special treatment has Jord got? Oh, Jord's going to get all kinds. He was my Platinum Pass giveaway, so he gets special treatment. Sorry. Okay. All right, guys. So it was a pleasure, and we'll see you in the Bahamas. I got my shirt ready. Check me out, right? Look at that. Already prepared. What does that say? PCA 2018. This is a good shirt, too. Makes the biceps look good. Yeah! See y'all.